Wow. Am I the oldest person in the room? Hands up if anybody's over 60. 60 or over. Not a single hand. Hands up if you're 59 or younger. Okay, there's a lot of people who don't know their age. 59 or younger. Okay, well, I'm 59. I'm with you. I'm 59. I'm with the majority. Okay, I can still keep down with the kids. But being old is great, because I've got one thing that you don't have, and that's the perspective of time. I've been 25 years in search engine optimization, and 10 years writing content before that, so 35 years. The content that I wrote was murder mystery evenings, pre-internet. I used to write and run murder mystery evenings for a living. Now, a murder mystery is where you have a dinner party and each guest is a character in a murder mystery plot. I don't know if it's come over to Lithuania, but it was big in the 80s and 90s anyway. And I did it as a business coming out of university because it was cheap to set up and hard to copy. It didn't always go according to plan. There were, I will admit, some issues along the way. For example, one of the characters I had was Linda Lovelace, not knowing that Linda Lovelace was, as an 18-year-old writing these plots, a 1970s American porn star. So when the Americans came along, not so good, really. Or when we did a murder mystery at the Grand Hotel in Brighton. Now, the Grand Hotel is famous for getting bombed during the IRA troubles just before the Conservative Member of Parliament's conference, and it killed some members of Parliament. And they rebuilt the hotel, and I did a murder mystery 24 hours before the next Conservative Party conference, and I came along and I saw police absolutely everywhere. I thought, oh my God. So I went up to security, not the security from the hotel, the proper police security. I said, I've got a problem. I've got a blank firing gun here, and I'm about to do a murder mystery with 200 people turning up in mafia outfits. They said, we don't care about the blank firing gun, but we won't have time to tell the snipers on the pontoon in the bay about the people coming in with guns as they're coming in. So don't let any of your people turn up with guns. So that was a bit of a problem as well. They were not happy, I've got to admit. Anyway, with the perspective of time, I can tell you that in my experience, keyword planning tools in content suck. They're broken. Keyword planning or content planning, the tools that you use do not work very well. This is my experience. And it doesn't really matter whether you talk about tools that are built by machines or tools that are built by humans. If we're talking about content planning tools from machines, then they tend to spit out keyword volumes. How many people type in this keyword? And they keep giving you keyword variations of the same idea. Or they use words that you would never actually use in your business. Have you ever tried that? You've tried one of those keyword tools. They come out with loads of ideas, and they come out with things like irrelevant synonyms. And worst of all, they come out with stuff that your business just doesn't do. And they're trying to say that you're going to make more money by telling people about something that your business is not involved in at all. So they don't work. They're not contextually relevant. So what you might do is get all your people in a room and you go brainstorming. Let's use the brainstorming tools instead. The problem then is that you get human bias. Your team is unable to see things from the customer perspective. Your team is only focused on your own audience, your own cultural norms. So you might use something like lateral thinking, Edward de Bono's lateral thinking. And lateral thinking is like going, okay, we've got to a stumbling block in our third thought process. Let's pick an orange, and let's think about ideas that involve the word orange. And that's creative, but it doesn't relate very well to a search prospect, which is trying to narrow ideas, not come out with new ideas. So then you might use something else more linear, like mind maps, which is also Edward de Bono, actually. But that comes out with actually, although a mind map looks like it's all over the place, it comes out with very linear kind of websites as a result of that. So you come out with something that says, right, I'm going to write a website, and I'm a DIY website, for example, and I'm going to have a parts section, and I'm going to have a power tools section, and I'm going to have a benches section, and it becomes very dry. So the content planning tools suck. And the macro implications of that are that at places like Google, at a worldwide level, the macro implications of that are really bad because they create a web of duplicated, uninspiring, repetitive content. It's just all the same. And poor old Google, because we really feel sad for them, they have to crawl all this stuff again and again and again and again. It's probably their biggest problem, except for lawsuits. So at a macro level, they just see the same old stuff. How many times can you say 10 things to do in Lithuania? But there's an awful lot more travel companies trying to sell to Lithuania than 10. So they just keep on doing it. We keep on doing it. But the micro implications for your business are also problematic. Because on your website, you do not know from these content planning tools when to start a new page, or when does a topic need multiple web pages of content to explain it, or when to delete content that actually has no value to your customers, to your business, or to you. So my murder mysteries, I want you to start writing content and thinking about content like I think about murder mystery evenings. When I write those plots, it's all about the subplots. And I want you to start thinking about the content and not thinking about the pages on drills and drill bits and saws, but the connection between those ideas, how those ideas connect together. And this is the concept of topic modeling. The idea of grouping information into logical, understandable concepts has got a lot more in marketing than you might think. So how do you do that, and why do you do that? Well, there are a lot of tools out there in SEO terms. If anybody's into SEO big time, then LSI, so LDA, LSI, Ngrams, you may have heard of some of those terms. And they are mathematical models for taking lots and lots of data, lots and lots of text usually, but more recently videos and other images and other ideas as well, and bringing them down to the underlying concepts. But the problem is those mathematical models, many of which were 20 years old, 30 years old, are keyword-based, not topic-based, not concept-based. So there are other topical ideas, like TF-IDF and topical PageRank, more mathematical models to try and break ideas down into topics and concepts. The issue is that in order to get something meaningful at the other end, you've got to all agree on what topic means. And a study in 2019, so 5 years ago now, by Reuter and Reisenbecker, looked at 64 scholarly articles on using topic modeling in marketing. So there's 64 out there, and that was 5 years ago. So this is a thing. And what they found was that all of these papers decided topics differently. And so when you get to different data sets and you start thinking about TikTok and you start thinking about your content on your website and you start thinking about images and you start thinking about your business, everybody is talking about a different thing and what counts as a topic. So in order to do anything meaningful, we also need to give you one slide that's still black and white, but on keywords, topics, and entities. Because you first need to do a definition of a topic. And the best way, and the way that Google does this, and the way that other people are starting to do this, is to build knowledge graphs based around entities. So let's take the Eiffel Tower. You could call it the Eiffel Tower, La Tour Eiffel, or that big metal building in Paris. All means the same things, uses completely different words to describe the same underlying topic. If, however, you take Wikipedia, they have one article, at least one article in English, probably another one in French, one article on the Eiffel Tower. And it doesn't matter how you describe it, that is the database place that defines the topic. So the idea of entities is that you take a database of concepts in the world, and then you have to model all of your worlds around an agreed central place for an entity. So if I was going to do that in murder mystery terms, just to be metaphysical for a little bit longer, then I used to write a murder mystery, and I used to give all the guests one page of A4, one page of a newspaper that gave them a general idea. That's kind of like what your business is about if you're going to explain it as a website. And then I gave them all a cast list, a few lines of all the characters. That's kind of like your sitemap. And then each individual has a character. It's kind of like a page on your website. And that character talks about subplots. That character, that Linda Lovelace, knows something about the vicar, knows something about the police officer, knows something about the Lord. And they have a little bit of information in their page of information. But in order to solve it, you need to solve the subplots. So topic modeling is like having a rounded murder mystery plot, where each subplot has a home, has an answer. There is an answer to each little subplot. You don't necessarily have to have a specific page to say what the answer is to the problem. You just got to have all the questions in there. And knowing all the subplots makes it obvious as to who the murderer is. And I want you to start thinking about your content in that kind of way. And I'll get less metaphysical in a minute, I promise you. So modeling content through entities is done by thinking about three things. The first is to create a database of entities on your website. So go through your website and say, right, I'm talking about this, 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 and this on this web page. This, and this on this web page, which sounds very difficult. Fortunately, there are tools out there to do it. IBM Watson has a free tool that you can do, which is an NLP, natural language processing extraction algorithm. You can go in there, put text in there, it'll come back with it. You could probably go into ChatGPT and say, tell me the main entities on this page of content, and do that as well. Google have an AI as well, which will take any URL and turn it into the underlying entities and the Wikipedia URLs and hits. Google's one is not very comprehensive, because they're just trying to pick out the main things. And Inlinks has one as well, which is trying to give you everything so that the SEO can decide what's important. But the idea first, if you want to get good content planning tools, is to know what the business is doing already. And it's not just what the business is doing, it's what you've told the world that your business is doing, which is essentially the content on your website. Secondly, you then want to model the ideas and get ideas for what you need to talk about next by expanding on your existing knowledge graph. So you've created a database, effectively, or a spreadsheet of all the ideas on your website. That's called your knowledge graph, your personal knowledge graph, and you want to then get ideas that are semantically close. You do not want to, if you're a tourist company in Vilnius, you do not want necessarily a suggestion of, let's get tourism ideas in London, because they're semantically distant. Just because more people type in London than Vilnius doesn't necessarily affect your business. So the way to do that, or a way to do that, is to use other tools. There's Also Ask, there's Keyword Insights. The one that we use at Inlinks is we throw all those topics into Google Suggest and see what's spat out as ideas that Google thinks are semantically close to the ideas that you just talked about. So things on your website, ideas that are semantically close, and you've got a new database of things that you haven't talked about on your website that you perhaps should do. This is very different to starting with more people type in travel to London than travel to Vilnius. This is extending your business. Of course, the ideas that are spat out by Google Suggest will include things that are semantically distant as well. So you then need to go through that output and delete the things that are not relevant to your business. But the result from there is that you've now modeled your content through entities, and you know and have a content plan that is going to develop your business. And if you your competitor uses exactly the same methodology, they will come out with a different content plan because that's relevant to their business. So you're no longer taking a generic tool and trying to do the same thing as everybody else. Why is it different to do it this way? Well, I'm not going to say which tool I took, but I took another keyword suggestion tool. This is the sort of thing that comes out for team building games. It comes out with team building games for small groups, team building but it comes out with team building games, workplace teams, team building games for mysteries. It comes out with things that are very, very close to each other. It doesn't come out with solid individual ideas. And if you don't do something like that, you're going to end up with a website like this, which is going to be very, very dry, and you're, in the e-commerce world, famous for it, which is trying to do content which is a list of products. And it doesn't work very well because we like to consume information in stories. It doesn't work like that. We don't want a list of products. Our head wants a story, something that's going to be fun for us. And if you don't group your information in interesting ways, Google will do it for you. So this is the macro kind of view from Google's perspective again. If you type in team building games in the UK at the moment, then you get this whole grouping thing. So the first thing that Google does is say, laser doesn't work. Say, okay, well, Mr. or Mrs. Searcher, are you looking for adults, for kids, for anything, without materials? Because basically, I'm going to give you different content as long as you press one of those buttons. So Google is asking the user to refine their process before they come in. And even if they don't, saying, right, here's a bunch of different ideas. We've got murder mysteries as one of them. We've got barter puzzles, scavenger hunts, all these different things. Haven't got to a website yet. We've got to concepts. We've got grouping. They're trying to follow the user. They're not trying to follow the biggest search volume necessarily. And you need to do the same thing on your website. You need to build your website around logical concepts and only talk about the ones you actually sell. Don't talk about the things that are completely a mile off of your skill set. So maybe you take a murder mystery. So I took this for a team building site, and they've talked about sports games and icebreaker games and team games, but I've taken their knowledge graph and then reconfigured it into concepts that I can try and understand. So now I might want to cluster things around team games. How do I dive into that? Well, I need to sit there and understand that I need some content around team games, but then I may need to talk about, I'm sorry, I can't even read my own stuff here. Oh yeah, adults, outdoor, PC, Zoom. So I could say, right, these are different kind of concepts in different contexts. And you know what, Zoom, I've already got a web page on virtual games, so I'm now going to make that associated with the cluster of team games. This is pretty different to the dry site that you had in DIY. So now we've changed the DIY site and changed the content around the DIY site to instead being departments that you might have down a shopping aisle, they're solving user journeys. So now you're talking about replacing a door. And you're talking about screws and drills and paint. Or fixing a drain, and you're talking about ladders and putty and masonry holes. But you know what? As a search engine comes in and looks at all this stuff, or as a user continues to develop their information, their understanding of your business and your website, then they start to see that you're talking about drills and masonry holes and raw plugs and drill bits. So if you connect the dots, you can see that this site will understand the answer to the question of which drill should I use for the purpose that I'm using it for. So the takeaway is not abstract. And just because I know that a lot of people work on a different side of the brain to the one that I've just done, I've got this in black and white and bullet points. What I want you to do is to cluster your topics as an extension of your current business, not based on keyword volumes that a keyword volume suggestion tool might spit out. I want you to make the answers to the questions solve problems that the users have. And then I want you to define pillar pages for a topic if you want to be an expert in it, and then think about the subtopics and the subpages within there. So that's the takeaway. I'm sorry, I've got more slides. Because the pillar pages are about the topics that are most important to your business. So they may be category pages on your checkout. Please put some kind of content in there for the search engines to understand the context. But then it's the links to that, the stories that talk about those products that link through, that are the important things for search, because that's what's going to get the user in at the informational part of their journey, not at the checkout stage of the journey. If you want the checkout stage of the journey, you should have been talking to our last speaker. If a subtopic has enough volume, then you create a new page for it. Now, enough volume depends on how developed your business is in a particular niche. There you do need to use keyword volume stuff, but there becomes a point where you have to create a new page to show that page in isolation. If not, then the subtopic can just be an H2 or H3 paragraph inside the pillar page or one of the other topic pages. Okay. And then just a couple of things. One thing to note, subplotting, if you think about the murder mystery and Linda Lovelace and her information, she can be the focus of one plot. She could be the pillar page in one situation, and she can support another situation. Linda Lovelace was my murderer in my plot, but she knew things about other plots that were important to other characters in the game. So a pillar page can also be a sub-page to a different page, and do a different thing, and different cluster in a different context. And internal linking completes the referencing between pillar pages and subtopic pages. To put it one other way, if you want color in your content, bring the terms that need authority, or big terms, the ones that have authority, need to have authority at the root of your content. In other words, get the base topics right, otherwise you cannot rank for the big terms. If you would like a knowledge graph of your own website, I'm sorry, it's got to be in English, French, Spanish, the normal one, not Lithuanian. I can't do Lithuanian. But if it's one of the English, French, German, Spanish, Italian languages, send me an email at talk@dixonjones.com, preferably in the next 24 hours. I'm not going to do this forever. And I'll just run the thing over and send you a map back of all the topics on your website so you can have a think about how you might do that now. And hopefully in doing that, you're going to add some kind of color to your website. That's color. That's good. That's it from me. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Dixon. So let's go to a very simple example. Let's say I'm selling books.
Yep.
And traditionally, the way I would approach SEO from selling books perspective, I would go to Ahrefs or SEMrush.
Yeah.
Would see that, okay, books online is a keyword with large volume.
It's a good example. So what will happen if you go to a keyword research tool with books? It'll sit there and say, right, the biggest selling book is Harry Potter and the Temple of Doom or whatever, and it'll sit there and say, that's got huge volume because people are typing in the names of books, and they absolutely are. But at that point, it just becomes a commodity game. Can you get the book quicker to the customer? And it basically, sponsored listings kind of do the whole thing. What's much more interesting is when you're starting to talk about books that are great for entertaining kids, or great books that are good for educating kids, or books that are good for, and you start to deal with parents' problems, or parents' questions, or parents' thought processes. And those are the ones that allow an informational search that turns into a transactional search pretty quickly. So you get a lot of stuff of top 10 books for kids or whatever. What I'd say is go back from that a little bit and say, right, these are the books I've got in stock. Let's talk about the great read. In the UK, Waterstone's bookshops, I don't know if you have them here, they kind of know that books are, dying, but they're really surviving very well. And the staff read books, and then they handwrite little thoughts about each book that they've read and put it in the store. Brilliant. Very human. And it's a really good way.
Can you do this approach that you're doing with your solution by hand? How do you start it?
Say that again, sorry?
Can you do it like by hand? Do you need tools for that, or can I just tweak my own sites?
Yeah, you absolutely can do it by hand, and if you know your business, your client business very, very well, you can. But the problem is that as humans, we miss it, because as soon as you've got 100 pages on your website, trying to remember, and each of those pages are not talking about one thing. Usually they're talking about 20 different things, and they overlap a lot. So your brain is really bad at going through and saying, right, I know I've got this pillar page over here. There's got to be about children's books, or children's books that will educate me in wizardry. I need to then go and see what's talking about wizardry on all the other pages. Oh, and I need the children's books on all the other pages. And your brain doesn't work very well manually. There are lots of quick ways to do it. You can do it with the keyword approach. You can sit there and take any page or any website and then create a word cloud, for example. Very simple way of doing it. And the big words, important, the little words. But then you don't get concepts right. So things like tower, bridge become tower and bridge, or murder mystery becomes a murder and a mystery. So entity-based stuff, things work better. And there are free tools. The main ones, apart from Inlinks, are Google's AI, IBM Watson, and TextRaiser is another one in France. Well, actually, they're British, but in France.
Awesome. Thank you very much for your insightful presentation and sharing of your knowledge. Dixon will be around today.
I'll be on the APG stand.
Yeah, he's going to be at the APG media stand. It's right there, over there. So you have 24 hours for this special promotion. Just send a link of your signs in English, and Dixon will do everything.
Thanks very much. Cheers.